And you can get stuff like Phantom Steed too. And now you can be a ranger riding a skeleton horse with your dragon next to you, and that's just the cover of your next metal album.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Cameron, aka Prince Phantom, and today we're going to go over his picks for the best feats for the Ranger class.
Yeah, rangers are really cool. Don't listen to what people tell you that they suck. They are actually probably like at least above average in terms of power level in this game.
You know what? I'm right there with you. I was of the other belief before, but Sam and I have been going through the Ranger subclasses recently, and man, there are some bangers in there.
There really are. There's some stinkers as well, but
Yeah.
mostly bangers. So
But this video will not be covering those. We'll be getting to Ranger subclasses in the future, but right now it's just straight up Ranger.
yeah, so rangers, as the name suggests, most of them are going to be playing at range, right? You can
Yeah,
totally make a melee ranger, and it is perfectly fine. In fact, there's plenty of cool builds to do it. We have one on this channel. If you want to check it out, it's our Shillelagh build. But most people are playing a ranged ranger. That's in the name. A lot of the spells synergize with ranged combat. It's kind of in the whole deal, right?
sure.
So with that, sharpshooter and crossbow expert.
Absolutely.
Part of the package. It's what you do. Now, I will say some subclasses have a use for their bonus action already tied up, in which case they're not interested in crossbow expert. Those are often the pet subclasses, like the
Mm,
Drake Warden and the Beastmaster.
yeah,
Already got their bonus action tied up. Don't want crossbow expert. Still want sharpshooter though.
sure.
So, and I will say, of course, if you're going melee, just replace that with Polearm Master and Great Weapon Master. And exact same thing I said about the crossbow expert applies to Polearm Master. If your bonus action is already tied up, you don't want Polearm Master. Simple as that, right?
Sure.
Um, they give you great increases to damage, extra attacks. It's awesome. It's how you make a martial character do good damage.
All right. Yeah, that's the obvious one.
Yep. So let's get into the more, specific picks. Um, so one an easy avenue to take the ranger is expanding their spells. So things like magic initiate, fey touched, great places to start. Magic initiate, rangers don't get a familiar starting off, which I find kind of strange. I feel like ranger is the only other class besides wizard that should get find familiar as a spell.
Mm. Well, I
I
mean, they
feel
do
like it'd
get
be
like
fitting.
a beast or a dragon, depending on the subclass. But
Yeah, yeah.
but
But
do they? Wait, do Rangers not? I get confused with their old third edition rules. Do Rangers not get like an animal companion anymore?
only certain subclasses.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
so it's not across the board anymore.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, obviously you can play those subclasses if you want. The Beastmaster even gets a flying pet that can
Mhm.
basically act as a familiar. So if you want to do that, but for everybody else, getting a familiar is really handy. And there's also a couple of cantrips that you might like. Rangers don't get cantrips normally. They can take a fighting style to get cantrips. But this does give you another avenue to get some cantrips if you'd like to pick those up, depending on your build. It might be something you're interested in.
Yep.
Fey
I noticed.
Touched
Yeah,
gives
a lot of these are just pile on some more spells.
Yeah, Fey Touch, Rangers lack short range teleportation options. Actually, I do think they get Misty Step, but they don't get it until level 5, and you only have two second level spell slots, and you probably want to use those on things like Spike Growth and Summon Beast. So, for that reason, having a free Misty Step is pretty nice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Rangers also, much like Paladins, have a syndrome where as they get into higher level play, their first level spell slots start to become harder to use. So being able to pick up something like Silvery Barbs and use those with your first level spell slots is really, really handy. It gives you an extra support avenue to help your full casters land their spells and even land some of your own spells.
Yeah, you're never gonna feel bad using silvery barbs.
Yeah, so that would be my pick if you're going those. And of course, you can also take Shadow Touch to get invisibility, which a lot of Rangers are really good at stealth. So if you want to do that, that's fine too. But I do think Fate Touch is slightly stronger just because of the spells it provides
Mhm.
and the better utility that they provide. That being said, they both give you a +1 to Wisdom, which is also great.
All
Um,
right, where do we go from there?
So Warcaster is a really good pick, especially if you're playing a melee ranger, because rangers kind of suck at concentration. They don't get any benefits to it inherently, and they're not proficient in Constitution saving throws. So Warcaster is really helpful, especially if you intend to play melee. I can say that you have more of an argument to skip it if you're going to play ranged, and you can more effectively stay out of the area of attack.
Mhm.
Um, I would still probably pick it up because you can't avoid every attack. There are going to be spells, there are going to be fireballs, there are going to be arrows. It's going to happen. So I
And
would
also,
still probably recommend it.
how are Ranger armor class looking?
Rangers are pretty good in terms of armor class. Now that being said, you're wearing half plate. Maximum AC with that is 17. Normally, if you're wielding a ranged weapon that requires two hands, so you're not holding a shield. So you're probably looking at a 17 armor class before magic items. That's okay for a character that plans to stay at ranged.
Not so much for
Because
melee
a
though.
lot of things that you're going to be hitting you. No, no, it's not. And it's one of the reasons I don't think Ranger is an especially good pick if you want to make a melee build. And it was good. But it's there are a couple of problems, that's all.
Mm.
Rangers want to invest more into their dexterity than they do their strength, just inherently, with a lot of their features and abilities. So that being said, Warcaster is still really good. You want to hold your concentration on spells like Spike Growth and Conjure Animals. Those are really important. You don't get a lot of spell slots as a ranger, so making sure those spells stick around is very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So definitely recommend Warcaster. Past that, Ritual Caster is really easy to fit on a Ranger. Rangers don't get Ritual Casting normally. They have an easy time getting to a 13 Wisdom. That's already probably something that you're at character creation. So Ritual Casting gives you a ton of extra options. You can get Find Familiar through this. So if you didn't want to take Magic Initiative, if there are no cantrips that interest you, then this is a great way to get that. And there's plenty of amazing rituals you can get. You can even turn your own ranger spells that are rituals into spells in your ritual book because you know them and you
Oh,
can copy them down into your ritual book. And now you can cast your ranger spells with ritual casting.
that's neat.
Yeah, it just
I
costs you a
noticed
little gold. That's all.
you got ritual caster like kind of far down the list here. What if you don't want to take magic initiate? Would you take ritual caster in that place?
Yeah, you definitely can. It's kind of a toss up, right? You can take Magic Initiate, Fey Touch, or Ritual Caster. I kind of rate them all pretty evenly. Probably Fey Touch is a little bit higher because it gives you a plus to your Wisdom as well.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's dealer's choice, really. Um, the reason that I say you're probably going to take until at least level 8 is because you do have to take your combat
Right.
feats before then. And
Yeah.
if you're one of the subclasses that doesn't need the second combat feat, then you can probably take it a little bit earlier. So it's
What
one of the
about
benefits to those subclasses.
are you always going wizard with your ritual caster?
Normally, there could be maybe an argument for taking druid because druids also get a bunch of good rituals as well, but wizards get most of the good
Hmm.
rituals. You're even higher level rituals like telepathic bond. They're really, really great to have.
Sure.
And you can get stuff like Phantom Steed too. And now you can be a ranger riding a skeleton horse with your dragon next to you, and that's just the cover of your next metal album.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
So another consideration if you're going the melee build is Sentinel. Um, Sentinel is a bit interesting, especially if you're playing alongside a companion, like an animal companion or a drake or something.
Right.
Because if something attacks your companion, your Sentinel procs and you can hit them as a reaction.
Mhm.
So if you're in the thick of it, maybe if you're even riding your companion as a mount,
Mhm.
Sentinel could be an interesting choice. It also helps to keep enemies on you because you and your mount as a like a combo is actually fairly tanky. That's a lot of HP for an enemy to have to chew through, the both of you. So keeping enemies stuck to you as opposed to other allies is a genuinely good strategy. It doesn't again, you can only keep one enemy close to you and only if you hit, so it's not foolproof, but it is generally good.
Yep.
So past that, I will say resilient, especially if you are going to play melee and you see how many things you have to do to play melee. Maybe now that whole consideration for why you might not want to play a melee ranger is coming into light. There's a lot more stuff you have to do to make it work. Resilient is a lot more needed because let's explain it this way, right? Most of your big damage effects, even in high tier play, come from melee attacks.
Hmm.
Even high tier monsters might have a melee attack that does 30 damage and a ranged attack that does like 15. If you're only getting hit by an attack that does 15 damage, Warcaster's probably enough to hold your concentration. You're not, even a fireball is only probably going to make you roll a DC 13 concentration check, and Warcaster's going to be enough for that. You get smacked in the face by a dragon for 40 damage, that's not gonna be good enough anymore, and now you
No.
need resilient. Now, yes, that dragon can also breathe fire, and that's a lot of damage at once. So it's not foolproof, but the majority of big damage stuff comes in melee. So for that reason, if you're playing melee, you need resilient even more than a ranged character does. But I would still recommend it at high tier play, even for the ranged characters.
Yeah, I mean, like you said a couple of times, Warcaster's probably enough, but sometimes it slips through the cracks. It's nice to have
Yeah, it's
a
really only when
backup.
you get into high tier play and you start taking big chunks of damage
Yeah.
from individual attacks. So it's not something I would consider until at least level 12, probably level 16. Um, Past that, Rangers don't need a whole lot, to be honest with you. They don't benefit from any of the armor feats. Their armor is fine. Maybe you could potentially, maybe argue medium armor master because they likely have very high dex, and that would give them a +1 AC. At that point, I'd say you're not taking that feat until very high level, and that +1 AC isn't actually helping you very much at high level. If you're going from a 17 to an 18 armor class when your enemies have a +14 to hit, that's you're getting hit 5% less of the time. Um, so at that point, tough might actually be better in terms of tanking for you because at least now you can survive one or two more hits.
Right. Yeah.
So consider that when you get into higher level play, that +1 AC might look good on your character sheet, but it might not actually be doing that much for you. Um,
Yeah. Well, that's another argument for tough, like we talked about with the paladin. Tough can also be, useful, beneficial on a ranger more so than some other characters, perhaps. Um, but then there's lucky.
yeah, yeah, and you can
Didn't
always take
mention. Yeah.
lucky, and there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
No.
It's always good. It's generic. It's the most generically good feat in the game.
Yeah.
It's not as overpowered as everybody says it is, by the way. You only get 3 uses of it, and
Three
I
uses
will
feels
say
like a lot.
it feels like a lot in tables where you have one combat encounter per day.
Mm,
If you have five, it's not a lot anymore. It's
yeah.
still good though. It is still genuinely good, and I will never fault anybody for taking that feat. It's good. Just don't say that it should be banned or anything.
I won't say
Hold
that,
your
but
horses a little.
I'm probably never taking it just because I feel like it's too good. I don't want to feel
It's
that
not
lucky.
too good.
All right.
It's not too good. Don't worry. Don't let that be the reason you don't take it. If there are reasons you don't want to take it, that's fine. Don't let that be the reason.
Now, all right. The real reason I don't want to take it is because I like to take feats that allow me to do specific things.
Exactly. You like things that actually synergize with your character and open up new paths of
Yeah.
opportunity. Like he just makes you better at what you're already doing
Yeah.
marginally. So
All right. Well, I guess that's a good place. In when we start talking about Lucky, yeah, the video's almost over.
Yeah, you can always tell. And we did skip over a lot of this stuff. If you've been watching our videos, we've gone over why sharpshooter and having great weapon master and all that stuff is good. I don't need to
Yeah.
keep repeating myself over and over again why a -5 to hit +10 is amazing. It's, and I will say Rangers synergize well with sharpshooter. They get archery fighting style, so they can mitigate that -5 a little bit. It all just works. Ranger's a really good class. If you're still
Oh,
stuck
do
in,
they get defense fighting style?
do they? I have to
I'm just.
check. I
I was just
don't.
thinking. Like when you were talking about medium armor master, like defense, as boring as it is, might be better than that.
Let's see. The Ranger. Do you get defense? Let's find out. I'm on wireless internet. Okay. They get. Yes, they do get defense.
Oh, all right. Well,
Yeah. So
great.
less reason to take medium armor master,
Yes.
probably.
All right, well that'll about do it. Thank you, Cameron, and thank you everyone for joining us. That was the best feats for Rangers video. Let us know what you think down in the comments below, and like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.